Welcome to my first chai making event on this Christmas Eve day. It's very frosty here on the Sunshine Coast. It's very chilly. I hope you're keeping warm, and one of the nice ways to keep warm is always with a cup of tea. So I'm going to share my screen. This is on my website. And if you prefer, you can actually go to your website under news. And if you press, I'll just show you how to do it. You press news, and then it takes you, this is also a new article that I'll be sharing with you. I just published yesterday. If you go one down and click here, you can see the recipe in your own kitchen if you prefer. Okay. So I'm going to be using this to show you what we're doing. Okay. All right. Okay, and I guess maybe you should all mute.
Maggie, I have a question before you mute us.
Yeah.
I have two kinds of cardamom, green and black. Which one?
Which one? I've done experiments. That's a good question. So we're going to start with the ingredients. So it's actually super easy to make. Like, it's basically all about having the ingredients. And the big thing is boiling it long enough, the spices, because most people don't. They steep them, which is just, you just don't get the flavor when you don't boil. In India, when they make chai, they boil it. And I'll say more on that later, but they boil it for quite some time. And what I found is boiling it for basically an hour, you really get the spices. You know, they're expensive spices. You want to be getting the worth out of them, in my opinion. Anyway, cardamom. So I keep a little bottle here. I go to Little India in Vancouver. You can get it also in Vancouver if you're there at the superstore. They have a good selection. Here on the Sunshine Coast, I actually found an Indian spice section that had cardamom. I was shocked. So it can be a little bit challenging to find if you don't have the pods. So the pods look like this. You see that okay? Sorry, I'm gonna get you to mute yourself, Seema, because it's recording you right now. So I better have it recording me. There we go. Hopefully it will start. Oh dear. Okay, I'm just gonna do this for a minute. This is one of the fun things of Zoom. Sometimes it doesn't record the right screen. Let's just try this. Okay. All right. Now it seems to be working. Let's try this. Okay. All right. So as I was saying, the cardamom, green cardamom is the traditional. Sometimes you can only get black cardamom. It does taste different. It's still good, but it does taste different. So I've tried half and half between the black and the green. But traditionally it is the green cardamom that is used. Okay. So that's the first ingredient. Make sure you have that. If you don't, you can use powdered cardamom. Sometimes that's all you can get. And if you have the powdered cardamom, you would only use a tablespoon. Start with that because it's, you know, already processed and it's a lot stronger. Okay, so start with that and then adjust it to taste. All right, so the next ingredients is peppercorns. So make sure you have those. Very important to make it nice and spicy. And our next ingredient, it's one of my favorite ones, is cinnamon. Now, my cinnamon sticks are about 6 inches long, but usually they're about 3. I just got these in bulk, so they're a little bigger. Again, you can use powdered cinnamon if you don't have cinnamon sticks, and you would just use less, again, to taste. Cinnamon, all these spices actually help with digestion in Ayurveda. They rev what's called Agni, or digestive fire. And yeah, we'll talk more about that. Each one of these spices. The next one is cloves. So I just buy a bag of cloves. And actually, I think I'll probably put these in a glass jar too, because it is nice to keep spices in a glass jar so that they keep fresh more readily. I use half a tablespoon of cloves. You might want to use less. That's certainly more than some people use in their recipe. One of the reasons I use more is because cloves are, from a research point of view, have an anti-inflammatory effect. They can be very helpful for joints. Surprisingly, do some research. They have a lot of medicinal properties. Cinnamon, I tend to use more cinnamon than other people because cinnamon, we know, balances blood sugar levels. It actually, you can take cinnamon in tablets for balancing blood sugar. So I tend to use more cinnamon also for that reason. It's also a natural sweetener. So you can use it in place of sugar. So it's a very powerful herb in Ayurveda, so to speak. Pepper, since we're on the topic, pepper is definitely heating. It's pitta promoting. It has heat in it. And cardamom is also heating, but not overly heating. Okay, it's fairly balancing as a spice. Fennel, I put my fennel in this container because it comes in these big bags from the superstore. So fennel is balancing for digestion. It's a little bit cooling, but it also helps with digestion overall. So, and it also has a sweet taste, so it adds some sweet to the chai. So if you make it just right with the spices, I actually find I don't add any other sweetener, but that will be up to you. So we're going to take all of those spices. We're going to boil water. I'm going to use 2 kettlefuls of water. And then I'm going to use ginger. This is not a traditional way to do this, but I do this because I really love ginger. I like fresh ginger. So I actually, after I boil all the spices, today we'll do about 30 minutes because, you know, I want you to actually enjoy having some chai at the end of it. I put the fresh ginger in my blender, my Vitamix, and I blend it with the chai reduction from the pot so that there's ginger in every cup. Ginger in Ayurveda is a very special herb because it's heating when you take it into your system and then it cools. So it heats and then cools. So therefore it's very good for the stomach. It also has a sweet taste when it's fresh and really sweetens the chai, again, as a way of avoiding using another sweetener. Okay. The last ingredient, the last 2, you optionally can add maple syrup. I use maple syrup rather than honey because maple syrup can be heated. It doesn't have mycotoxins. Honey, it depends who makes it, but honey can have mycotoxins when you heat it, and therefore traditionally is not heated. Maple syrup, on the other hand, is processed with heat and therefore can be safely heated. You can also use jaggery, which is sort of the Indian version of maple syrup. Mr. Desagachar, TKV Desagachar, when I went to see him for yoga therapy in 2001, he sent me home with a big ball of jaggery. It's this sweet, very interesting, hard type shape that people make in their kitchen in India. And my Ayurveda teacher told me that the maple syrup was Canadian jaggery. So I use maple syrup. It's much easier. So I don't actually add maple syrup to mine, but that's an option for you if you would like a little bit of sweet. I always have it on the side for my students who want that. And then in terms of the tea, I am going to be making a caffeinated one today with Assam tea. I go through phases of my life where I give up tea, where I give up caffeine, and therefore I also use rooibos tea, which is a little harder to get. It's extremely good for you. It has lots of antioxidants. It's from Africa. It's lauded as a health food. Assam tea is not terribly caffeinated if you don't over steep it. So it just adds a little kick, but it's not overly. And this is from Little India or the Superstore, this huge bag of Assam tea. And it's a powder. So this is just like in India. It took me a long time to find this. And then once I found it, I was like, oh, I think the rooibos is out now because I found real Indian tea like they have in my kitchens in India. I don't know if you can see that, but let me see if I do this, you can see. Can you see that? Sort of. Oh, maybe like that. There we go. You can see that. So it's a black powder. I got it all over my computer. It's funny. Okay. All right, so those are the ingredients. So does everyone have their ingredients? I'm just going to stop share for a minute. Everyone has? Just give me a thumbs up. Oh, Seema, you can't see me? Can everyone else see me? Can everyone else see me? Oh, not sure. I'm not sure what's going on, Seema, for you. Do you want to log out? Oh, let's unmute you. Okay, so can you unmute yourself, Seema? Okay.
Hi, Maggie. We only could see, well, at least I could only see the screen of the computer with ingredients. I could not see any of what you were showing or
Oh,
describing.
you couldn't see me on the side? You couldn't
No.
see me on the side?
No,
Oh,
nothing.
okay. Could everyone else see the little picture of me on the side? Yeah? Yeah, you could? Okay. All right. Okay. Must be something in your settings, Seema, but it's good for me to know that. I won't share the screen. I hopefully will remember my process. What I'll do is maybe I'll actually just minimize your screen, but you'll still see me. Okay. So does everyone have that that screen open? The recipe? Everyone has the recipe open? You can just nod, or we're a small group. Yeah.
How do we open it now, Maggie? I had your shared screen before,
Okay.
but
So I'm gonna do.
I can do it on my phone, I guess.
Here, I'll do this. I'm gonna send it to you this way. Just give me 1 second. So putting this in the chat. Now, can you click on that and go to that? Go to that. Just to help you keep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this will just allow Seema to see the screen, and it will make it actually visually it'll be better for people to see what's going on. Probably it's good feedback. Okay, are we all good now? Yes. Okay. It's my first video cooking class, so we're going to be learning how to best do that. Okay, so the first step is to boil your water. So you can boil it in a kettle if you want. You can boil it on the stove. It depends on your stove, which is easier. So I'm going to do mine right on the stove. And what I do is 2 kettlefuls, which is 16 cups of water. Of course, you can cut the recipe in half if you prefer. And if you cut the recipe in half, it will in the end make about 1.5 liters of chai reduction. It actually doesn't make very much in the end. It's quite strong. And when you serve it, if you're not serving it with milk, you would just add hot water and thin it out that way, because it's a reduction, if you know what I mean. Like it's, you know, it's been processed. Okay. All right. So you can decide on the amount. So I'm going to take my kettle and fill it for me to measure. So I'm just going to do that. Just hear me doing that off to the side here. So you guys can all do that with me if you want. Just start measuring your water. And then, I'm hoping you can see me okay over here. Oh, we've got some fire making happening in the background. So I'm just going to take another one. So if you want to do it with me, feel free. This is the nice thing about doing this actually online, is that you're all in your kitchens, because when I do this live, it's a little tough. I had like stations and I had one person cutting. It was good fun, but it was a bit chaotic. So I'm seeing the advantage because we have many kitchens. This is good. I like this. This might become a keeper. Okay, so I'm adding that. So I actually don't really do this anymore. I just fill my pot. It doesn't have to be very exact, all right? So, you know, if it's a little more or less than 16 cups, you see I've got a big pot of water here. Okay, does everyone have their water ready? Okay, so I'm gonna put it on the stove and boil it. This is very easy. And I've got some helpers here today. I decided to bring my little altar here to help us cook this morning. I've got Mr. Ganesh and Patanjali, who's a he and her, I think. She's androgynous, fortunately. And my ghee candle. Okay, so I'm gonna put my stove on. We have a very fast boiling system here. So this is something I learned when I last did a Panchakarma in India, which is an Ayurvedic cleanse at a retreat center in South India. They made all their food over firewood. And there was something about the food that tasted different. And I asked the doctor, I said, you know, does it make a difference what way you're cooking your food? Like, does it affect the taste? Now, my husband is a chemical engineer, and he's like, heat is heat. But I don't know. There's something about it. So I'm still investigating the science of this. Elaine is also a scientist. She might have an opinion on this. But it seems, the food seems different when you cook it, say, on you know, gas versus electric versus fire. Anyway, there's this belief in India. So just something to know and to think about. I have no idea the science of that. Heat is heat, but maybe it is a little bit different. So just heating our water. And yeah, make sure you have, you need one tablespoon available to you. This is very tough cooking. You need 1 tablespoon available for a whole bunch of things that are coming. The sun is starting to come up here. So I should show you for a second. If I can without disrupting. I don't know if you can see this. You see the sun coming up? We've got our wood stove. It's looking very Christmassy in our living room. So we have a lot of birds who come to our tree, and this morning for the first time the tree has frost on it, which I was a little worried about the birds with all that. Okay. All right. So, let's see how we're doing. It does take a while to boil 16 cups of water. Yeah, something you can do actually while you're waiting for this is you can take your ginger and you can peel it. You can get that ready. So that's probably the only sort of cooking part of this is you actually have to peel the ginger. So I think I've set a 3-inch amount. So, you know, so I'm going to inch 1, 2, 3, probably, you know, about that much. It's starting to boil. So I'm going to take my ginger and start peeling it.
Maggie, it's Jane.
Yeah, hi Jane.
While you're doing that, you start with 16 cups. I'm just wondering, what is the reduction down from 16 cups?
It goes down to about 14, but then I add a couple of cups, like I add water to make up for the reduction.
Right.
It's quite strong. So I make mine strong on purpose so that it comes out to still around 16 cups, even in a reduced way, if that makes sense.
I'm just trying to figure out, you know, jars and stuff like that.
Yeah,
put it-
so I pour it into, when I keep it in these milk jars,
Right.
and I usually get about 2.5
Okay.
to 3, depending. I think 3 is the most I've gotten.
Okay. I have
Okay.
some big 750 ml
Yeah.
mason jars. I'll use those. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, good question. Yeah. Okay, I've got my water boiling. So once your water boils, just turn it down so that you know you're not hurting yourself and you're not losing water unnecessarily while you add the spices. So once you've got it boiled, so mine is definitely boiling. I'm going to turn it down to medium and just leave it open. And then I'm going to start adding the spices. So you guys let me know when your water is boiled, and I'll just wait for that, okay? Since we all have our own kitchens. Yeah, so when your water's boiled, just give me a thumbs up and we'll go to the next stage. In the meantime, you can start peeling your ginger. Okay, so just peeling the ginger now. You're good? You got it? Quinn? All right. Our youngest chef. Okay, just let me know, everyone. You can give me a reaction, a thumbs up, whatever works. Okay, Seema, Jane, not sure if you guys, Connie, is yours spoiled? Elaine, yours is spoiled. Okay, I'll just give you guys a minute. Just peeling my ginger here. I guess I should do it maybe over here so you can see me a bit better. So yeah, be careful with the peeling. Oh, okay, Connie, you're just observing. All right, no problem. Yes. It's like when I trained you guys, step 1 was observing, step 2, assisting, step 3, teaching. No problem. I observed this for years in India. I lived with a family during my studies. I always end up living with a family, and I watched them make chai. And often in India, South India, anyway, spicy chai is not as common in South India. They don't use the spices as much. It's more North India. But when they add spice, they'll add ginger and cardamom, just those two. They don't add everything else. So later, I learned how to do it this way from a friend from Bombay. Okay, well, I've got my ginger ready. Is everyone, Jane, do you have your water boiled? Are you good?
I don't have all the ingredients. I had a migraine that put me in my bed yesterday, so I'm just
Oh,
watching. I
okay.
have almost all the stuff, but I have to go out today, so I'll pick it up and I'll make it later, but I just thought I would watch.
Awesome. Okay.
I'm watching you. It's just laying on the table in front of me. That's why you see my secret.
Okay. Okay. Thanks, Jane. Okay, Seema, are you ready to roll with the next step? I'm glad we actually have
my water is still not boiling. My ginger is peeled,
okay.
but my water is taking forever. This expensive appliances that I got are very slow.
Okay. All right. We'll just wait another couple minutes. We'll have our water boiled. I'm just going to cover mine. Okay.
Is yours electric or gas?
It's electric. Yeah. 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 We decided for safety, you know, yeah, when we have friends who will stay at our place when we're away and that kind of thing, just for safety, we decided to go electric. So I really wanted gas, but I have to say for cleaning, it's really nice. Yeah. All right, so we're going to start adding ingredients. If you want to start with your cardamom, so I've got my screen open on my website to the ingredient list. It's in order of how you add them. So the first one is the cardamom that we talked about, green cardamom versus black. I have experimented with black. Sometimes I use half and half. I prefer the taste of the green myself, but do play with that. So I'm adding 3 tablespoons of that. So go ahead and do that. And I tend to be a little bit liberal, not exact. Okay, so that's the first one. And then the next ingredient you add is your black pepper. I might ask all of you to mute yourselves, just let's see. Okay, I've got you all muted. All right. Awesome. Okay, so the next one is black pepper. So I use 2 tablespoons of whole black pepper. Again, if you were to use it ground, you would use much less. And I wouldn't recommend it. It would go into the tea. I think it would be a bit much, but anyway, I haven't tried that. Hopefully you can get some whole black pepper. Pretty easy to get most places. So 2 of those. Okay, and I've actually got a mix of mine of some red in there as well, different peppers, and that actually tastes wonderful. Okay, the next thing I'm going to add, I'm just going to make sure you're all with me. Is everyone with me? I'm not going too fast? All right, okay. Thank you for bearing with me as I learned how to do this online. Okay, so cinnamon sticks. So again, cinnamon, because of its properties of balancing blood sugar and being a natural sweetener, I like to use a lot of cinnamon. So with mine, which are about 6-7 inches long, I could just use 2 of these, but I'm going to use, that depends on the size. This one's quite big. I'm going to add 1 extra today. If you have the smaller ones, you would use around 4. And again, it's to taste. I use a lot of cinnamon myself. So I put those in. Just check if you're all with me. Okay, we all got the cinnamon in? Yep. Okay. All right. So the next ingredient is the cloves, and this one you might want to be adjusting to taste. Again, I use a little bit more than some people would. So about half a tablespoon. So I just take my tablespoon and I fill it about half. Again, it doesn't have to be exact. So just fill that about half. Got about half a tablespoon there, a little bit more. Some people add a lot fewer cloves. So that's going to be one that you might want to adjust if you find the taste too strong. Again, clove oil is an anti-inflammatory, and it's also good for digestion. It's one of the key Ayurvedic herbs for digestion. So you can have that. And the next one is fennel, which has a sweet taste. So in Ayurveda, you're always balancing sweet tastes with more spicy tastes, with astringent, bitter tastes, all the different tastes. So we're going to take a tablespoon of this. And again, you might decide you want to use more when you make your own recipe. So I'm adding that. And that's it. At this point, you just let it boil. So I'm going to turn it up again. You can see it starting to get darker. I'm going to turn it up. And I'm giving it a stir. And I'm going to bring it back to a boil. And then I'm going to simmer it. And I think actually, yeah, we'll probably maybe end with this part because it'll probably be a little boring for you to watch all of us watch our pots simmer. But I do recommend you simmer it for a good hour. I was going to do this part with you, but I'm thinking actually, yeah, why waste everyone's time? It's a busy day. So yeah, you can just, once it comes to a boil, so mine is boiling now, I'm going to turn it down. I'm going to cover it so I don't lose as much water. And I'm just going to simmer it. On a fairly high simmer, I'm putting it, on a 3 so that it keeps a little bit of a rolling boil. And I'm going to leave it for an hour. And you want to leave it until the cinnamon sticks are like, really apart. They're really big. They become really big in the pot. The cardamom becomes really big. Everything looks very lush and full of water, the spices. And at that point, you'll know that the work has been done. You could keep all of those spices and make one more round if you wanted to. If you were cooking for a big group, you could do that. It wouldn't be as strong the second round, but you could do that. I don't, because it's just, who has that kind of time? So I just make a huge amount and reduce it and keep it, and then I can serve a lot of people, is how I do it. Okay. So don't forget the last piece. After you boil it, simmer it for about an hour, you're going to strain it. Okay, so I'll show you just how you do that. I use my big strainer like this. You can have a little one, but you just have to be a little more careful. I put it on top of my blender, which is 8 cups. I pour it in. I pour it into about 6 cups, not 8, to about 6. And then I take half of my ginger. I take half of it and put it in, and you'll get this big foam of ginger on top. Okay. The other piece that I forgot to tell you, which is very important, before you do that, I should be looking at my cooking process so I remember. So before you do that, you need to add your tea. So if you're using rooibos, you can boil the rooibos, no problem.
Look
You
at
can.
that.
Oh, someone's got, someone's saying something. I'm just going to mute you all. Okay. All right, there we go. Okay. So we're boiling the spices for an hour. Okay. After you boil the spices for an hour, I forgot to tell you an important piece. You need to take your tea. So I use a quarter of a cup of the Assam tea. If you want it less strong, okay, you can use less. All right, you could cut that down to 1/8 of a cup. For rooibos, I would use the full quarter of a cup. Rooibos makes a beautiful decaffeinated chai. People love my decaffeinated vegan chai. If you want to make decaffeinated vegan chai, make this with rooibos. And then, so the rooibos you can boil for about 15 minutes. The Assam, when you put the Assam in, you're going to have to experiment. When I did research on this, experts on Assam tea suggest 2 minutes, 1 to 2 minutes for steeping. But you might like it stronger. I like mine stronger, so I leave it 5. So it depends on your taste. I'm used to India where it's like really strong. So in India, they do leave it more like 5 minutes. Something else in India that you'll see if you've been to India and watched chai being made, they take the tea, they put it in and they let it boil up and down with the milk in it. So they add the milk, they add the tea, and they let the tea boil up and down like in the pot, it's about to flow over. They do that twice before they strain it. I asked my Indian family about this, and they said, well, you know, if you have less money, it's a way of getting sort of more tea out of the tea. You can use less tea by boiling it. But the negative point about that is it creates tannin, which is does not promote digestion. Tannin, when it hits the gut, it has a drying effect on the stomach and actually does the opposite of promoting digestion. So if you suffer from constipation or anything like that, do use rooibos rather than the black tea. And if you want still a little bit of kick of caffeine and you have sort of those digestive issues of dryness in your system, like constipation, use less black tea and steep it less long. So 2 to 5 minutes, and do not boil it. Okay? Okay, so I'm going to review this again. So step 1, we've got all the spices in there. We're simmering them for 30 minutes minimum to 1 hour. Okay? Step 2, turn off the stove and add your tea of choice. You can just leave the rooibos. You can just leave the Assam. If you're using rooibos, you can further boil it for another 15 minutes to get the real juice out of it. And you might be able to use less if you boil it. Okay. If you're steeping, if you're using caffeinated tea, Assam tea is the traditional tea of India for chai. Steep it from actually as little as 1 minute. If you do research on it, some people say 1 minute. So 1 to 5 minutes. I do mine for 5. I have done it up for 10. I don't like it when it gets to that 10 level. I find it, the taste, you lose the taste of the spice. So you don't want the tea to overwhelm the spice. Okay, so it is important to time that piece. I've experimented with that. And I find for me, 5 minutes is the magic number. And then you take that reduction and you pour it through your strainer into your blender. You take, I'll be sending you this video, okay? You take half of this ginger and you put it in the blender. Make sure you don't fill the blender all the way, like fill it about 3/4 of the way. And when you blend it, it will have this foam of ginger on top. With that, I pour it into here and keep it. And if I'm serving some fresh, I steam some milk and pour it on top like you would a cappuccino. Now, I have in the past also, if I'm serving this fresh to a huge group, I add my milk right to my blender and whip it that way. That's another way you can do it. You can just whip the milk right in it. In terms of milks to use, at this point I'm using goat milk. I'm really into goat milk. Goat milk is lauded by Ayurveda. It's not kapha promoting, so it doesn't create mucus and those kinds of things. It's, if you look at it scientifically, it's low carb and low fat compared to other milks. So it's less fattening, so to speak. But in Ayurveda, it's about the taste. The taste of goat milk is astringent and bitter, which means it doesn't promote tissue formation. It helps reduce tissue. Okay, so that's a whole Ayurveda thing, which is a whole other conversation. Coconut milk works brilliantly. A nice, you can decide on the level of fat. The more fat, the creamier. If you're more a Vata constitution, you have a slimmer body type, add lots of fat. It's good for you. It's MCT oil. You know, it's supposed to be fat that is very good for the brain, good for the joints, etc. So you decide. I tend to use a lower fat coconut milk because I have a tendency to gain weight, so I have to be careful, but that's up to you. Okay. All right, so does everyone understand the process? Are we good? Do you want me to show you the visual one more time? I know Seema can't see this, but yeah, are you guys all good?
One question.
Yes. Yes, go ahead.
When you're putting the chai in the cup, what's the ratio of chai reduction to milk in a cup?
That's a very good question, Elaine. So, okay, so there's a few options. So what I find is for this particular recipe, about half and half, like a cappuccino. If you want it less strong, add some hot water and then add your milk or cream even, right? If you like cream, like coconut cream, you could really heat it and put a little bit of coconut cream on top, right? So yeah, there's different, I like the coconut milk that you buy in the Tetra packs that is more like, you know, milk, and you can add that. I'm trying to remember the brand. Real Thai, I think, is the one that I like the best. It's very, very fattening. So I was drinking that every day and I was putting on weight, and I was kind of trying to figure out why. And I realized it was because I was drinking this very fattening coconut milk. So I decided to cut that out of my life. But yeah, if weight gain is not an issue for you, enjoy. It's great for you if you can handle it. Does that help, Elaine? And if you don't want to use milk, this reduction, if you get it just right, it should be sweet enough that you can drink it straight up without any sugar and even no milk. I actually find it quite tasty even without milk, but that's not traditional. Traditionally, you put milk in it because that's one of the properties that balances the tastes in Ayurveda is the milk, because it has all the tastes represented, except we don't have, yeah, it doesn't have all the tastes. We have the sweet taste for sure. We have the pungent taste. We don't have salt and sour. Okay, those two tastes are not included. So it's sweet, it's pungent. There's a little bit of bitterness and a little bit of astringentness, especially from the tea itself. if you don't use caffeinated tea, there's less of an astringent and bitter taste and more of a sweet taste. So the rooibos, again, if you want a natural sweetener, the rooibos is quite sweet. And then for those of you who have more of a sweet tooth, feel free to add maple syrup. This is one of my yoga students, her company. What are they called? Uncle Luke's maple syrup. They're Vancouver company, and their maple syrup is from Quebec, naturally processed. So there you go.
At what point do you add the maple syrup?
I add the maple syrup when I do the blend
Oh.
in the blender with the ginger. I add it at that point, but basically it can be added at any point because it's processed with heat, so it doesn't, from my knowledge of maple syrup, it doesn't change its chemical, how do you say that, formation, like it doesn't change. The molecules don't change. It has that integrity. So that's, from my knowledge of it, it's a stable sweetener.
How much would you add for one blender?
For me,
batch?
one tablespoon. Some people would want to add more. Yeah, I don't add any myself. I find this recipe doesn't need it because of the cinnamon and the fennel. Those are very sweet in and of themselves.